And we are live. Welcome back to the 2020 podcast, where it feels like it has been forever since we've
We
gone
missed y'all.
live and we've recorded anything. The channel has been popping off a little bit, great, gaining more subscribers. And one of our videos hit 1.3K. We do appreciate you guys. Drew, how are we doing on this beautiful Tuesday night?
Hey, we're doing great. OTAs are kicking off, so there's some NFL back in the forecast. We got the NBA playoffs that are going to kick off in 2 days. We had some brand new Eminem drop last Friday. Everything's great in Drew Taylor's world. How about you?
Good, man. I'm stoked for the start of Thursday. I think it's gonna be more exciting than some people think on both sides of the argument for the Celtics and the Mavericks. But yeah, it's nice to see the OTAs kicking off and seeing a little bit of the news. You know, you texting me, oh, is this person holding out and this person holding out? Why are they not at the OTA? So
That was a
it's good to
dumbass
have
time for an article to drop, by the way. I've
Oh,
been
right.
very, very busy, just so everybody out there knows. I work at a car dealership, and it's been Memorial Day weekend, and a whole bunch of crazy stuff is going on. And so I'm barely able to pay attention to things that are going on my phone, like a Christian McCaffrey extension today. And I see somebody tweet out that our boy Micah Parsons is holding out. And so I sent it over to you, and you're like, oh no, he just missed the non-voluntary OTAs. And I'm like, okay, in a day where we're talking about Brandon Ayuk doesn't show up, CeeDee Lamb doesn't show up, this guy decides to publish a freaking article he does about how Micah
Right.
Parsons rested his body for non-voluntary OTAs. I'm like, get the hell out of here, stupid.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but I feel like it's purposeful.
I should have known it was
more people clicking.
It was
on
an NFL.com article, which is like junk.com. So stupid. That's like being caught by a fake. It's like a fake Woj tweet.
It's like the Onion getting caught by the Onion article. All right, let's go ahead and kick everything off. Not with the NFL, which is funny because I feel like we always kick everything off with the NFL because it's usually the biggest news. But let's kick things off with the NBA side of it. And a couple of questions. First one, did the Celtics have the easiest run at the finals in recent memory? And then how does this affect them in the finals, again, starting on Thursday? Just to kind of refresh everyone's mind, the Celtics have faced a Jimmy Butler-less Miami Heat in the first round. Donovan Mitchell missed a handful of games in the second, and Jarrett Allen missed the entire second round. And the Eastern Conference Final, Tyrese Halliburton missed 2 games plus most of a third game as well. And starting in that second game, he got injured, didn't come back. So missing a lot of superstars that the Celtics ended up facing. And this has been the biggest criticism of them. Their Mickey Mouse path is what people are calling it right now. While they certainly haven't been challenged as much as I would personally like them to be challenged, it's just like talking about the other side of the spectrum on the NFL and the Cowboys. I'd like to see them challenged closer in the playoffs or closer to the end of the season. Celtics, I would like to see them challenged a little bit more. But I feel like we're forgetting a couple of things. Before we get into those things, do you feel like they're having the easiest finals run in recent memory? And again, how does this affect them?
You know, I definitely think that if you had even taken away the injuries, if you look at the teams they played, the Miami Heat, the Cavaliers, and the Pacers, forget the injuries. It was an easier path in terms of the teams that they could have faced versus who they did face. And then when you factor in the injuries, in recent years, it feels like the Bucks and the Sixers have played a huge role in the Eastern Conference and what was going on out there. And those teams just went out with a whimper this year. But you can only play the games that are on your schedule. I'm not going to hold it against Boston. I've said multiple times to you this year, watching them play these teams, and I was like, at the end of the year when Boston wins the finals, we're just going to look back on this and be like, yeah, they were the most dominant team all year. It doesn't matter which injuries happened or which injuries didn't happen. Frankly, they've kicked everybody's ass this year, whether people played or didn't play. And the only games that they did lose this year were a little bit self-induced. I won't go too much into that because I'm going to hold that off for our next topic. But yeah, it was an easier run for them. But frankly, whatever they did in the offseason for their players to stay healthy, whatever, getting the right rest and getting the right regimen going for their players to stay healthy, that's part of building a team. That's part of investing in your health and safety staff and getting your players rested and rehabilitated the correct way. And now it's the NBA Finals. Chris Stapps is coming back. Your whole
Yep.
team is healthy. And that's part of running a successful basketball organization. It's not just trading for the player and getting them on the court. It's about keeping them healthy, managing
Absolutely.
the load throughout the year, managing the minutes throughout the year. And the Celtics have done that. Now they're going into the NBA Finals locked and loaded.
Yeah, and that's exactly what
Maybe.
I was going to bring up too. Boston went 3-0 against the Heat, 2-1 against the Cavs, and 3-2 against the Pacers in the regular season. Even against other teams that were in the playoffs that they did not face, they had a winning record against, except the Bucks, who they ended up having a 2-2 series. So even up the series there, they were the number 1 seed by 14 games in the Eastern Conference, the largest margin between the 1 seed and the 2 seed since 1976, which again was Boston. Boston became the first team since the 2012-2013 Miami Heat to win the East by 10 games or more. The Celtics also clinched the league's top record before 12 teams even clinched a playoff berth. And Boston finished with a 7-win lead on the next best team in the league, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Denver Nuggets at 57 and 25. Just continuing on, this is some of the things we're forgetting about the Celtics in the regular season. The Celtics scored 1.22 points per possession, which is the best in league history. Their 122.2 offensive rating is also the best in league history. The Celtics outscore teams with an average of 11.34 points per game, which ranks 5th in NBA history. The top 4 out of the 5, so again, that's 5th. The next 4 after that all won the title that season, including teams like the 2016-17 Warriors, a couple of those Lakers teams from the 80s. And the Celtics became the only team ever to win 3 games by 50 points or more. And we have 3 players that score over 20 points per game, not also mentioning some of the defensive ratings as well from Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. All of the collective effort of defense for this team has been tremendous as well. So I just feel like we kind of just miss it in our minds of how good the team has really been. Yes, the path to the finals hasn't been super duper difficult, but also this team was poised and ready from the jump. Like, why are we forgetting that this was the best team in the league all season and we ran through a lot of these teams with ease? So I'm not sure what we're doing there. And then the other things, I know I mentioned this to you couple of weeks ago, but we don't really ever talk about last year's NBA Finals champions and the Denver Nuggets for having an easy path to the finals. If you go look up easiest path to the finals right now, go look it up on your phone, you're going to find the Denver Nuggets are going to rank somewhere in the top 6, 7, 5. Even you can find an article on them in the top 3, like repeatedly. So nobody ever talks about it. No one ever discredits them. So why the Celtics, and then why the hate for the Celtics? I mean, I just feel like it's something that it's repeated. So what do you think? You see it over and over and over again, comments on Instagram, or I'm sure you probably see it on Twitter or TikTok or wherever it's at. Why the hate for the Celtics? Why is it this bad? And especially Jason Tatum.
Yeah, I just think it's prisoner of the moment stuff. I remember the conversation surrounding the Denver Nuggets last year, but it's much like how it is this year. The Denver Nuggets were the best team all year, and they
Yeah.
went in and they won the finals. I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact that it's Boston. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is a dynasty of the NBA. It's one of the greatest franchises in the history of the NBA, and people
Yeah.
don't really like that. There's also the connection with the football dynasty that occurred over there in Boston, and there's a lot of intermingled hate when you're talking about teams and you're talking about these super teams, these super franchises. I know the NBA wants the Lakers in the finals. I know Los Angeles wants the Lakers in the finals, but I don't think there's an NBA fan in the world that wants to see the Lakers in the finals. I think Boston
Right.
has a lot of that as well, especially your older NBA fans. But I think Tatum is also pretty polarizing as a player. His inconsistencies are interesting for a player that's approaching his level of stardom, and a lot
Yeah.
of times are covered up by the fact that his team is so talented. And I think this is awesome for the NBA if the Celtics can win the finals and Tatum can go out and average 35 to 40 a night and just transform himself into superstardom, and Luka can show out and be freaking amazing on the grandest stage with Boston as the centerpiece, because Boston draws the viewers, and now people are
Yep.
tuning in to Luka versus Jason Tatum. The NBA is sitting here with a very, very good finals on their hands in terms of showcasing their younger talent. I think they would have been happier if Minnesota had made it, just in terms of showcasing Ant to the
Oh yeah.
nation. But Luka is definitely, I mean, frankly, any given night, Luka can play like the best player in the world. So
Oh yeah.
it's just, it's one of those things. I'm looking forward to it. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll give predictions at the end of this, and
Yeah.
I'm
Definitely.
sure our predictions are going to be quite similar. But it's going to be a good series, I think. I think it'll be one of those things. Even if it's a gentleman's sweep or it's a 4-2, I don't think these games are going to be blowouts, and that's what I'm excited for.
Definitely. The last thing that the narrative I want to say is also kind of frustrating for me is the narrative that, again, that the Celtics have kind of gone on this, once again, this Mickey Mouse run. And it really hasn't been that difficult, really hasn't been that hard. While also at the same time, if you go look for graphics of Luka and the opponents that he's faced, you could find it on a slideshow on TikTok. If you just look up Celtics path to the final, it's like Mickey Mouse path and Jason Tatum wearing like Mickey Mouse ears, and the opponents that all miss games, and then it's Luka like wearing a war helmet, and all the teammates that he's or all the opponents that he's had to face. And it's crazy because they're putting guys up there like Kawhi, and it says in parentheses, Kawhi missed 4 games. But not only did he miss 4 games, he was very injured and played very poorly because of it. Put Paul George up there. We're acting like Paul George isn't one of the like worst playoff dippers in the last couple of years, year after year after year, having field goal percentage, free throw percentage, steals, and points per game all dipping statistically, and then your turnovers also increasing. Putting James Harden up there, which is a waste of breath, but also putting guys up there like Zubac, Westbrook, and Terrence Mann. Like, you're just throwing guys in there to throw them in there. So it's just, and then there's more guys. Like, there's almost an entire OKC lineup, super young, probably wasn't going to win the finals this year. They don't have the experience to make a run like that. Very good team in the regular season, and it was an impressive win. But then you go and you put everyone on the Timberwolves and who they faced. Mike Conley's old. Team veteran guidance is really why he's on the team. He's putting Nickeil Alexander Walker on the graphic. Cat and Ant played their worst playoff series and against the Mavericks. And I'm kind of just bringing all this up, and I'm kind of just reducing the efforts just to show you how easy it is. Like, I can go through and point out every single player on that graphic and like reduce the efforts of the players from the Dallas Mavericks and say, oh, well, you did this, and really we're pointing this out, and really we're pointing, like, at the end of the day, we should just appreciate that both these teams made it. The Dallas Mavericks 100% deserve to be there, and so do the equally deserving Boston Celtics. So reducing the players' efforts to just, oh, well, it feels tiring at this point. So hopefully we can move on to the finals, and it can, whatever it is, 4 games,
Celtics
5
fans a
games,
little
6 games,
salty, huh?
close. Absolutely. It's
You
sickening.
get you guys got this big old powerful super team out there in the East. You got 4 different stars on the team. You played absolutely nowhere on the way to the finals, and then Luka has been hobbled on one leg, and he's put his team on the back to carry him to the finals. It's polarizing, and
Oh yeah.
I think frankly we're trying to make something out of it because the Celtics are probably going to smash them, and then
Yeah.
it's just going to be like, oh well. We'll watch this entire NBA season for fucking nothing. We knew in Game 20 the Celtics were winning the finals, and now the Celtics won the finals. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Hopefully it's closer than that. Hopefully if the Celtics pull it out, they win every game by 1.
Yeah.
Hopefully it requires some very extremely impressive performances from Tatum and not, Jaylen Brown heroics the whole time. That way his dynasty can be set a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Well
we'll
then
see.
asking you the question, moving on to the next topic, I want you go ahead and kick us off with, how do you stop the Boston Celtics? And then right after that, I'm going to go ahead and give you, how do you stop the Dallas Mavericks? So how do you stop them, this super team with all these stars on it? How do you actually slow them down or stop them fully?
I don't really think that you can stop them. I think what Dallas is going to have to try to do is try to outscore them. And I'm not talking like 140 to 130 because obviously the Boston Celtics offense is historic. But like I mentioned, Luka can be the best player in the world any given night. He can do some incredible things. Um, Dallas's length and their athleticism on defense is something that Boston hasn't had to deal with the entire playoffs. Now, that's taking out the regular season, but
Right.
obviously the last 16 games or so. And Kyrie's season really went under the radar this year because he didn't play enough games to be considered for postseason awards, and he was just fantastic. And I know there's a bunch of people that want to hate on me because I mentioned the flat Earth shit, but that's part of Kyrie, like part of his personality. You take him and you leave him. And right now he's balling
Yep.
out. He has NBA Finals experience, which is a huge plus, especially for that team.
Yeah.
And really, I just think that if the Celtics are going to lose, because I'm not going to buy into this. I'm not going to buy into this. The Dallas Mavericks are more battle tested. I don't give a crap about that. Like, these guys have all
Right.
played in big games. It's this isn't the Oklahoma City Thunder showing up in the finals, right? These guys have all played big games. The Celtics have been here before, and the Dallas Mavericks have the defenders to deal with Kristaps, but you guys have made it through the playoffs without him. So he's an added piece for sure, but the team is already good enough, Porzingis or not Porzingis. I think really what it comes down to is the consistency of Tatum. I think if he has one of those patches that he's been prone to do in his career where he goes a little silent and he goes a little absent, and kind of like Tyrese in this, then the last, you and me talked, we're like, if Tyrese Halliburton's going to come out and take 8 shots, they're not going to win. They're not going to win the series. They're not even going to win a game. If
Absolutely.
Tatum doesn't come out, Tatum needs to come out and set the tempo, set the tone, because Luka will.
Yeah.
And that's really a let me take 6 ingredients, throw it on a piece of dough, throw it in the oven, and hopefully it tastes good way of explaining how the Mavericks could beat the Celtics.
Mm.
Frankly, I would not predict it, and I do not
Right.
expect it. But if Tatum has a game or two that aren't great, and Luka goes supernova, because Luka could go supernova for a game or two, and Kyrie could go supernova for a game, and maybe they're at 3 games, and then if you guys are 3-3 or 3-2, at that point anything can fricking happen. Taking injuries out of it, of course. And I was super interested to hear that Kristaps, when they asked him, they asked him, "Are you going to be back by game 1?" And he said, "Yeah, that's the plan." And then they said, "Are you running pain free?" And he was like, "Yes." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it was just, you can tell there's some lingering effects of it. But
Right.
frankly, you gotta lace up the sneakers and do everything you can, because this is the finals and you got to put it all on the line. That's a great cliche. Clip that.
Who would you say is the biggest X factor on the Dallas Mavericks to really beat the Boston Celtics? Who's the biggest, whether it's offensively or defensively? Who's really the biggest X factor? And I know Luke is probably the obvious answer, but I was curious if you had anybody else besides that.
Well, I mean, we know that this is the X factor. I'm not going to give you a name, and that's super fence sitting here, but we know what Luka is going to do. We know what Kyrie is going to do. They have to go supernova, but there has to be somebody else on the team that steps up in a way that's like, not like, to where after game 2, the Boston Celtics are like scrambling to figure out, holy shit, what are we going to do with this? They're throwing completely different looks at us. They're doing something they've never done before. It can't just be Luka hitting all these step back threes. Like, he's not going to do that for 7 games. It can't just be Kyrie. Personally, Kyrie's a great player, but we got a great defender over there in Drew Holiday. He's not just going to go off for 40 every night. It's just not going to happen. Even if Kristaps doesn't play well, you got Horford right there. Like, this team is deep and it's prepared. It just really would need to be somebody coming out of left field to just completely, basically transcend their career arc and where they've been as a player to take it to the next level for this to happen. And again, I'm talking about it feels like a lot of crazy shit. Like, I just don't see it happening. But I think that's what it would take. It would take Kyrie and Luka to go to the next level like they're going to do, and then someone else to step it up even further. Because you guys have that, right? There's Jalen, there's Tatum, there's Horford, there's Kristaps, there's Drew, there's your boy. God, why am I forgetting his name?
The bald assassin.
The bald assassin, yeah.
Derek
of
White.
course, I can remember Derek White's nickname, but I can't remember his freaking name. You guys got 7 players on that team that might go for 30 any given night. Well, Drew Holiday might not go for 30, but still, I mean, the Mavs aren't that deep, and so they really just need somebody to come out of nowhere like that, in my opinion, to help them win this series. Which again, I don't expect to happen.
Yeah, I think for the Mavericks, I think two guys to keep an eye on are going to be one is going to be Derek Lively to see if he can continue the tremendous impact that he's had, especially in the last series, to see if he can continue that. And then the other person on the Mavericks side is going to be Derek Jones Jr., not only on his defensive side, which is why he is a starter and such a good player. But also his 3-point percentage has been through the roof in the postseason compared to normally. You want Derek Jones Jr. to shoot a three usually. In the postseason, he's played a little bit differently. So continuing that on the big stage in the finals is really going to be something to keep an eye on, especially with some of the things I'm going to be going over with how to stop the Dallas Mavericks. I think Derek Jones Jr. is going to play a huge role in that, along with a couple other guys as well.
And, I mean, PJ Washington has had a season in his career where he averaged 16 to 17 points a game. Now that's obviously for a very, very lackluster team. And as I like to remind people, every team has a leading scorer. So he, if you told me that he averaged 22 to 23 points a game this series, that would be interesting to me. I would like somebody to come from the future and show me averages of players that led to the Mavericks winning the NBA Finals. And I really think that instead of seeing something like, oh, Luka went for 45 a night or PJ Washington went for 25 a night, it would be something like, oh, Tatum averaged 16 points a night in the finals, something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I really just think it's the Celtics' inconsistency, which is more bred from lack of needing to play hard. I really don't think they've dropped the ball in huge games this season. Like even the playoff games that they've lost, it's just been like, did they get beat or they just lose? Did they beat themselves?
Right.
I just don't see this Celtics team as a veteran team. They have a ton of experience on it. I just don't see that carrying out over a full 4 losses for them. So
yeah, no, absolutely. It's like, we dropped a game against the Miami Heat and everyone thought the sky was falling. And it's like, you guys forgot that they shot like historically high numbers for the team in the postseason from 3 and from the field goals, for field goal percentage as well. So like, let's not get ahead of themselves. They had to shoot a tremendous amount of threes, hit like a crazy amount of them. Let's pump the brakes. They're not going to shoot this every single night. It's just not possible. And guess what? They did not. And they ended up getting dispatched immediately after. So was really nothing to be concerned about. So we might see something similar with the series coming up. Anything to add before we move on to the Mavericks?
No, I think I just made the Mavericks. I think I made them both, really. One team has to play really bad and the other team has to go supernova, which is boring, but that's what we're talking about. The Celtics, man, they're just...
Yeah.
They just have so many pieces. It's like, it's fucking impossible to even explain how it all came together. It's like, all right, you draft really well Tatum and Brown, but now you got Horford, now you got Porzingis, Drew Holiday, like the Bald Assassin. Where are all these? Yeah, and then you even got a couple more dudes off the bench. That Pritchard kid, man, he freaking lit us up in Sacramento.
Yeah, it's like the 3 immediate white dudes off the bench with Pritchard, Cornette, and Hauser coming off the bench immediately.
Yeah, bro, that's Larry Bird's franchise, man. They got to show out there in Boston.
Moving on to the Dallas Mavericks, I think with the Mavericks it gets a little bit more technical because of how hard it is to actually stop Luka. Unfortunately, the number one thing for the Dallas Mavericks and how to stop them, and everything comes down to not only Luka but screens. By God, these guys love to set screens. I feel like more than anyone else. I know I have my cousin watching right now, and the best way I described it to him,
watching.
Yeah, you too. The best way I described it to him when I was watching Luka, I'm like, what the Mavericks are? I'm like, Luka and the Mavericks are the one guy in 2K where the only way he could score is just to set screen after screen after screen after screen. It's just really fucking annoying after a really long time. That's exactly what it is. So They've set 52 on-ball screens per 100 possessions for Luka, which is the highest for any player that the Celtics has faced in the playoffs this season. Those two primary players are going to be setting those screens, and the two most successful players is going to be Daniel Gafford and, once again, Derek Lively, who set 59% of the screens for Luka. And again, more successful. When those two guys are setting the screens, they are scoring more points per game per possession. These screens cause a number of issues for opponents. Number one is the Luka isolation ball, where I feel like he's incredibly comfortable, and the numbers back it up as well. His 555 points in isolation in the regular season were most by any player in the last 4 years. So what ends up happening a lot in with all teams, and what's going to happen with the Celtics, is going to be switching. So the on-ball defender and the screeners defender are going to end up switching a lot, and then that's when Luka wants to take advantage of the isolation ball. But we have the personnel to do it, and we switch a lot. Tatum, Brown, White, Holiday all have the potential to guard Luka in isolation. So most of the time what ends up happening is Lively and Gafford are guarded by other big men, though, most of the time. The other thing that we do is we don't have big men also guarding big men. We have Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum, who end up playing closer to the power forward position. We saw Drew Holiday end up playing power forward and center against Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam for most of the last 2 games, because Luke Kornet and obviously Kristaps Porzingis has been out for a little while, but Luke Kornet was out for those last 2 games. So Drew had to specifically guard those guys because Al Horford, obviously being 147 years old, he's not going to always keep up, and not having another reliable big man. You bring up, we brought in,
Don't
O'Shea
you dare talk
Brissett.
about Aqueta.
No, Quaid actually haven't had any playoff minutes, but
Don't
the
you
other person
dare
that we
disrespect Queta.
the only other person that we brought in
Sacramento
as
legend.
well was Xavier Tillman. So not really another reliable big man to guard. So again, it's not always the big man who are going to be guarding the big man. So having the personnel on switches, like Drew Holiday switching, or if Jason Tatum is guarding Luka initially and then they swap, you're not really going to be getting a huge mismatch. But I think the player they're going to be guarding the most is Al Horford. That's the one they're going to really have to be careful of. Everyone else, again, Holiday, Brown, Tatum, these guys are either all defensive NBA players or right on the cusp of that accolade. So if any of the teams in the NBA are going to be able to stop the isolation ball, it's going to be the Celtics. The second issue that we end up running into is the lobs that Gafford and Lively end up receiving from Luka, or Luka drawing the foul. So what ends up happening is, if there is no switch and Luka ends up slipping through one of those screens and has the on-ball defender directly behind him, he has one of a couple of options. Number one, he loves to just draw the foul immediately. You'll see him go up, he'll draw the foul. It's the whole Luka thing. And if he doesn't get the call, he'll look at the ref and all the way down the court and scream at him. So it's a typical Luka thing. That's option number one, and he's very, very good at doing it. He's actually number 2 at free throws per game in this series. Jason Tatum's actually number 1. But Luka's really good at drawing the foul. That's option number 1.
I thought you were going to
2.
say he was number 1 in throwing a fit with the refs. I was like,
Yeah,
he's going to go there. He's going to get them Luka boys on us again. Once again, casuals.
Hey, it got the views, didn't it?
It sure did.
So that's option number 1, and that option only opens up if the defender in the paint ends up dropping back a little bit and not helping up with the coverage, and then the on-ball defender is kind of just put on an island and he ends up drawing the foul. The other option is he doesn't draw a foul and he just goes in for an easy floater or easy jumper, and he doesn't get the call, and he ends up making the basket. So 2 points regardless, either way. The other option that ends up happening is the defender in the paint, when Luka slips through, on-ball defenders behind him. That we see this multiple times with Rudy Gobert or Cat in the paint in the last series. What ends up happening is those defenders end up stepping up and then leaves Gafford or Lively or whoever is screening able to slip around and roll and get the easy lob. So it's the solution here is one of 2 options. Once again, I feel like I'm saying one of 2 options for a lot of these things. The solution here is going to be 1, blitzing the screen by having the screener's defender jump up above the screen for pressure. what you end up happening then at that point is the screener's defender ends up slipping out, which then we need to switch somebody else on that screener's defender. The number one person, just spoiler alert for my X factor for the Boston Celtics, it's Drew Holiday. The person I feel like is going to be switching constantly over and over and over again every possession, no matter if we're trying to stop the screen for blitzing and we have Drew switching off of his defender or his offensive player. He's going to be switching constantly because he's basically one of the only players personnel wise that can guard almost all 5 positions. So he's going to be moving around constantly. So blitzing that defender, they're extremely successful at it. Unfortunately, they just don't do it a lot. And against the Mavericks this season, they only did it a handful of times out of like the 89 screens that Luka ended up getting against the Celtics in the 2 games that they played. They only did it like 5 or 6 times. Very, very few. The other option, I've already kind of said it, but it's just a fully switch from another defender that isn't the screener's defender or on-ball defender. So how this works is, for anyone who doesn't know, or they're just kind of super casual basketball fans, how this ends up working is you have the on-ball defender and you have the screener's defender. So let's say it's Jason Tatum on ball and then you have Jaylen Brown off ball. What ends up happening is when there's a supposed to be switch, the screener's defender is going to stay with him the entire time. Jaylen Brown is going to stay with the screener the entire time. He's not going to move off him. Jason Tatum ends up moving off of Luka. And let's say Drew Holiday switches off and guards Luka at that point. Switches off, or whoever is closest to the other side of the screen ends up switching. Jason Tatum then picks up the open man, and it's going to happen over and over and over again. This is going to be the solution that the Celtics are going to use the most. We end up switching from another offensive player constantly. And again, Drew Holiday is going to be the biggest factor in these situations. So, again, Drew Holiday.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, what's up?
Why is it that the number 1 and number 4 defenses in the NBA couldn't slow the Kyrie Luka train down, but you think the Celtics can?
I think
you're putting a lot of faith in Drew Holiday here?
I think rightfully so,
because they're gonna hunt Kristaps bad, bro.
Yeah, they are.
That dude is already not mobile.
Yeah,
and
I'm interested to see again because I think the switching from an off-ball offensive player off of away, whether it's Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, Derek White doesn't switch as often. But any one of those 3 guys, I think we're going to see a lot of rotations from them. I think they're going to be the ones to stop them because they have the personnel to stop them. When you have Mike Conley out there, that's fantastic. He's there for veteran presence, but he's not playing the greatest defense on the planet. Ant's a good defender, but we saw he was completely gassed in the first 2 games of the series, and he couldn't stop Kyrie. We're not gassed. We're fully, just like you want to say, we're locked and loaded. We're gassed up. We're born ready for this. So we have the personnel to do it. And again, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they don't have those accolades this year of the all NBA defensive team, or excuse me, all defensive NBA team. But they're right on the cusp of those type of players. We had a discussion of best 2-way players in the league. Tatum was in that discussion as well. So these guys are there. We have the personnel to move guys around, play a bunch of different positions from 1 to 4. The position 5 is a little bit non-flexible. When we get our second team out there, the second unit of Luke Cornett, I'm interested to see how that kind of works out. If we end up employing the same thing as switching the off-ball defender constantly onto whoever's driving into the paint, I'm curious to see how that's going to work. So make the adjustments as it goes. Have a game plan for game 1 and then make the adjustments. Don't panic. See how it works. I think we'll be fine, but the screens are going to be the number 1 thing to stop here. And again, whether that is on the isolation ball, I think we have the personnel to stop them, or whether that is not hedging the screens and Luka gets out in front, we have, again, I think the personnel to stop it, whether it's blitzing, switching the off-ball defender. We've done it multiple times. It's how we play the game. That's how it's going to go. In my opinion, that's how you stop the Dallas Mavericks, is those screens. Anything to add?
I'll add the rest of what I got when we do our predictions.
Okay, then let's start it. So, final predictions for the NBA Finals. Drew, go ahead and start it off with who you think is gonna win, how many games, and how do you think these games are actually gonna go?
I'm going to go with the Dallas Mavericks in 7.
Okay.
I trust the closing ability of Luka and Kyrie over the closing ability of the 7 guys that are going to try to end the game. I think that
Yep.
actually hurts the Celtics in close games, not knowing who's taking that big shot. I'm not sure if it's Tatum. I'm not sure if it's Brown. I'm not sure what we're going to do here. I do not think that Kristaps is going to play this entire series. I think that they're going to hunt the shit out of him, and he's not going to be fully healthy. And I'm really just riding this wave of Luka and Kyrie right now. And it would be boring if we both picked the Celtics.
Hmm. So if the Celtics end up losing, what's the fallout from that and the immediate aftermath, and then the aftermath going to the offseason? What's the fallout at that point?
I think they'll fire the coach and move him into the front office. No,
Shut the
just
fuck up. Fucking stupid.
He's still around, right? He's technically the GM, Brad Stevens.
Yeah, hey dude, he's a great GM.
I don't
He's a
really think
baller.
there's any fallout, man. I just think it's styles define matchups and matchups define the results. And sometimes you just run into something that's a little weird. They're
Yeah.
a young team. They're a great team. Um, if you gave all 32 GMs the option of Luka or Tatum, how's that falling? And
Yeah.
then if you gave all 32 options, all 32 teams the option of, Jaylen Brown versus Kyrie, I think a lot of people go Jaylen Brown because he's a lot younger, but the Tatum Luka dynamic is certainly interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
Now this could all be for naught. I mean, they might just smash them out in 5 games. It might be 4-1 gentleman's sweep, but I just think that Luka can go to another level,
Mm.
and we've seen that consistently in regular season games. We've never seen it for a 7-game series, and he's been injured and hampered and everything. But um, yeah, like I said, it's boring for us to both pick the Celtics. That's why I'm kind of going against you here. But I think from 15 to 20 games into the season, we're like, holy shit, the Celtics are really good. They're probably going to win the finals this year. And now here we are. We're 4 wins away from them being NBA Finals champions again.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I picked obviously the Celtics, and I did do it in 7. I didn't do it any less than that. So
you said
I
7?
think I did say 7. So this
Oh
is the most
wow,
nervous I've been throughout the
yeah,
playoffs.
I can tell.
Very comfortably the most nervous. And the Dallas Mavericks themselves, I would say pre-playoffs, weren't really making me that nervous, even though they
Not at
had a
all.
ton of success moving into the playoffs, going from right outside of the play-in or right in the play-in to all of a sudden surging all the way up to the 5th seed, and even having the chance to take the 4th seed away from the Clippers. So having that chance and opportunity was there in front of them for that. And the additions of Gafford and Washington completely turned this team around to something completely different. And the big contributions from guys like Josh Green, brought up Derek Lively, obviously, and also I feel like I'm forgetting one more. Oh, Derek Jones Jr. So big contributions from guys like that make this team a little bit more dangerous moving into the playoffs, but then actually being able to perform on top of that. And that's not just regular season success at the end of the season when guys are starting to get more tired and fatigued and the Mavericks just happen to turn it on. That's not what happened. We could see that now. Guys are rested up in the playoffs for the most part against the Mavericks, and they're performing time in and time out. And Luka, as much as I'm not the biggest fan of actually watching him because of the theatrics and the antics and the looking at the ref and having the ball stolen from him and immediately looking over when he can go for a block or go try to play defense, it's super annoying to watch him play. But regardless of what my opinion is, at the end of the day, he's one of the top 5, top 3 players in this league right now, regardless of what I say or how I feel when I'm watching him. That's the reality situation, and he has taken another step forward in that Luka magic to get them to this point right now. So it's nerve-wracking to watch it. The Celtics are the Celtics, and they're boring to talk about, right? Because they're good, right? It's not exciting to watch, to talk about those teams. And in the NFL, the only reason we talk about the Cowboys and the 49ers as the top teams is because you and I are fans of them. So that's the only reason we talk about them so much. So it's not exciting to talk about those top teams. There's no discourse, there's no troubles. But right now is the most nerve-wracking out of the entire season, not just because it's for the finals, But because, again, Celtics haven't been really challenged that often, and the Mavericks are super red hot, including big contributions from the guys I mentioned. Obviously, Luka, and then can't forget World B flat, Kyrie Irving as well.
Not touching it.
You didn't want to touch that one.
You're gonna get us canceled.
That's fine. All right, Drew. Before we move on off of the
We're
NBA
gonna be streaming
stuff,
on Facebook Live here when we get booted off of YouTube.
oh, dude, that would suck. Before we move on from the NBA stuff and the NBA Finals specifically, I know we said 7 on both ends. Who takes Game 1 on Thursday? Obviously, we should be live streaming directly after the game. Whenever you get off of work, obviously,
I'm
we'll
off
end up
on
talking
Thursday.
about it. Okay, cool. So we'll
Yeah, I'll
end up
be
going
watching.
live directly after it. So, who takes Game 1?
Dallas.
You've been hanging out downtown with the crackheads.
Here's the thing: is they're gonna struggle to weave Kristaps back in. It's not going to work in the beginning, and then the coach is going to have to figure out, all right, do I just abandon Porzingis completely and send him to the bench? By that time, it's going to be too late, and Dallas is going to take Game 1, which is going to be a stark contrast from the rest of these playoffs because Dallas keeps losing and looking like shit, and then they come back like crazy. So I'm just going to go with something different.
Yep. Celtics in Game 1 at home, they're pretty hard to stop, so gonna go with them.
I don't see how Dallas wins 4 of 6. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like one game obviously doesn't mean the series, but oh man, if Detroit, what the hell? If Boston comes out and wins Game 1, that's tough. Outside of just let's
promise you,
put the big disclaimer here that if Tatum blows his ACL out, none of this matters.
Oh yeah, big time. And I promise you that when you said Detroit, we probably are not going to mention on this podcast the Pistons ever in the playoffs for a very, very long time. So even the last time they're mentioned on this podcast for the finals was right there. So
even the Lions don't think they're going back to the playoffs. So Detroit's just shit out of luck. Hey, shout out to the Kings. Dumbasses.
Celtics win by 10. My cousin says Celtics win by 10 in Game 1.
Yeah, I mean, if the Celtics come out and smash in Game 1, I do not see Dallas winning 4 of 6. So I'm just picking Game 1 to keep Dallas in it. I just don't see that happening. But shout out to the Kings for signing Mike Brown to his extension, because letting your coach come into a lame duck year when you're trying to convince Malik Monk and shit to come back. And, shout out to us for thinking that we're going to do any type of NBA draft coverage when the whole NBA thinks this draft sucks. So that's going to be lame.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing for the first draft to try to cover. All right. If nothing else to add, let's move off the NBA stuff and then move on to the only NFL coverage that we end up having.
We talked about Christian McCaffrey.
Important briefly. NFL news.
Wow, bro. Come on. It's the best running back in the NFL.
I'm not going to not deny it.
You're just mad that my team has a running back, aren't you?
Oh, we have Zeke. What are you talking about?
Who?
Now, see, dude, I just reminisce on old times. That's why.
I was going to say, isn't that dude that retired like 3 years ago? You guys are bringing back Marion Barber or something next? DeMarco Murray? Was that his name?
Yeah. Talking about guys getting paid, obviously mentioning Christian McCaffrey, the biggest guys getting paid news recently was Justin Jefferson becoming the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Drew, let's pick out 3 winners and 3 losers from this contract and the fallout that's going to follow it. So,
all right, number one personally, winner. I go first. I'm taking the easy one. Number 1 winner, Micah Parsons.
Okay, you want to explain why Micah?
Because he wants to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL when he gets his contract. Justin Jefferson is currently the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. He took that mantle away from Nick Bosa. Yeah, Micah Parsons is a winner from this.
Yeah, and it's funny that we sit here. It's Micah to me, and I know that Micah's super polarizing. And when it comes to polarizing players on my teams, we just got done talking about Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics and how much I defend Jason Tatum. Micah's almost non-defensible sometimes, and it's so hard to defend that man. You have the entire offseason to get healthy. You're out there to goddamn fucking sumo wrestling with CJ Stroud and doing all these antic shit, and you want time away from OTAs to heal your body. When specifically the Cowboys coaching staff was looking for you to take a step forward and be a better leader for your team, not just for your defense, but for your team. And you haven't taken that step forward. Micah feels very, very immature still. He doesn't feel ready to be a leader on this defense. While you look at some of the other top guys in the league, talking about Nick Bosa, talking about Myles Garrett, talking about TJ Watt, talking about Max Crosby, these guys feel leaders on their defense. They're mic'd up. You can hear them talking.
Nick Bosa was at OTAs, by the way.
And it just exactly. And just Micah doesn't feel ready to take that step forward. Him getting the big contract is probably inevitable. It's just a little bit disappointing to kind of see him take a back seat on all the extracurriculars that comes with being a superstar on your team. My first winner is JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy gets to have the best wide receiver in the league, not lose him for a quarterback that needs help and needs as many weapons around him as possible, whether that is Aaron Jones. TJ Hawkinson will come back in the middle of the season, coming off of his major injury at the end of the year. Now you can bring back Justin Jefferson. You don't have to worry about that. That doesn't have to be a cloud looming over your head. Also, Jordan Addison and the various pieces on that offensive line as well. So I think the biggest winner here for me is definitely going to be JJ McCarthy, because he gets to, actually throw the ball to for the next couple of years, if he stays that long, next couple of years, to Justin Jefferson. Who's your next winner?
I'm not going to do the stupid Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb. Duh. We're all aware, right? That's why I went Micah number one. Number two winners are going to be the Detroit Lions, Philadelphia Eagles, and the Houston Texans, because they were smart enough to lock up their player, Nico Collins, AJ Brown,
Eagles,
and Amon-Ra St. Brown before this contract came down.
Yep.
This is one of the things that made me nervous about Brandon Ayuk. Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb's contracts made me very nervous about Brandon Ayuk, because he is not in that space. Even if you take out his advanced stats and say he might be, he's never catching that many balls. So you can't pay him like Justin Jefferson, because he's never going to have Justin Jefferson stats, because we got 7,000 great offensive weapons. Congratulations. You can't pay Brandon Ayuk $32 million a year.
Right.
So winners are going to be these teams that locked up their star wide receivers. Nico Collins, not really a star wide receiver, but I just threw him in for another team. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, who wants that, and the Philadelphia Eagles for getting their contracts done before this one came down.
Yeah, I had a couple of those various teams as well, specifically the Eagles for locking up their players before this happened. Especially, you look at Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, they're very easily, if you have the Eagles, I'm going to go and just take the CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase thing.
Sure.
Obviously, they were holding out and they're everyone was kind of waiting for each other to sign those contracts. And it's funny because I think of CeeDee Lamb, obviously, is next guy up to make that type of money with the season and progressions that he's had year after year after year. Am I wrong for thinking that Jamar Chase should make less money than both those guys and maybe a handful of other wide receivers in the league? I know he probably won't, but am I wrong to think that maybe he should make a little bit less? Am I just clouded in my memory of Jamar Chase? I know he's a very good wide receiver, and I know he's very talented, but I feel like the things that CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, Amon-Ra, I feel like what those guys do is a little bit more than what Jamar Chase does. I don't know if I'm wrong in that.
Yeah, there's definitely an interesting argument to be made about Jamar Chase. I got him right here. 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns, 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, 1,455 yards, 13 touchdowns. That's his rookie year that he set out with 14 and 13, and now he's just gone down every year since. Yeah. Obviously, there's been some shit with Joe Burrow as well, so I don't want to dig too deep into that. But, yeah, it's a lot of money. Justin Jefferson changes the game. Yeah. Does Jamar Chase change the game?
Yep.
You're it's hard to say.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting conversation. I know we've done in the past, just you and I back and forth about top 10 wide receivers, running backs moving into the next season. When we actually put some of those lists out on the podcast, it's just interesting to see some of those guys fall into place. Like
you have to pay that dude because of JJ McCarthy. There was nothing else you could do.
Yeah.
You already
Yeah.
got Burrow.
Yeah.
You can re-sign Higgins and get, honestly, how much worse are the Bengals going to be re-signing T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and losing Jamar Chase? How much worse? A game? A
Yeah.
game and a half? Is that
Yeah.
team beating the fucking bitch ass Chiefs anyway? Should we even watch
Right.
football next season? Should we just meet tomorrow at Champ Sporting Goods and buy goddamn Travis Kelce jerseys and be Chiefs fans? Should we
Yeah.
just rename this the Chiefs Lovers Podcast? Like, why does any of this matter? They're just going to win. I'm just going to grow out my mustache and eat McDonald's and be fat like Andy Reid. I'm finally having my meltdown.
I know. I was like,
I can't believe we fucking lost again. God damn it.
Oh, man.
Deebo Samuel's bitch ass can't get open in the Super Bowl.
Yep. I'll go ahead and take the next winner. I think the next winner out of this entire contract fallout is the Minnesota Vikings. I think they're one of the biggest winners. And for the pure fact that they can actually keep a star wide receiver instead of losing them.
It was just a sign and trade.
Stephon Diggs and sign and trade and Randy Moss. So another generational wide receiver potentially was going to step away and leave. They locked him up. They finally can get the monkey off their back of just losing wide receiver after wide receiver that are very, very, very talented all-pro wide receivers. So good for them for actually locking up Justin Jefferson. It's cool to see when a guy plays on one team for a really long time. So hopefully Jay Jettis is going to be one of those guys. Who's your last winner?
Man, I should have left. So we got Micah because obviously he's in line to get the next biggest contract. We got JJ McCarthy. We got the Vikings. We got the other teams that signed wide receivers. Hell, I mean the frickin' his agent.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean that's 6 winners that we're trying to pour on. So we want to move on to the losers again.
I think it's a win for small market teams. You know what I mean? I think it's a win for the Minnesota Vikings. They got this beautiful stadium out there, and they've shown that a star will stay, and it's always tough. Who really wants to play in Minnesota? Like I know it's an indoor stadium, but like you could be on the beach in Miami during the week. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just So
absolutely.
Sorry, I just my whole mind reset with that meltdown.
A little bit of your rant.
Yeah.
I'll take the first loser, and for my losers, I only really have teams for the losers, and so we might overlap a little bit. I would say the biggest surprise loser and like least obvious would probably be the Miami Dolphins are some of the biggest losers in this. Tyreek Hill coming out, and this is directly after paying Jalen Waddle and being the 4th highest paid wide receiver in the league, while Tyreek Hill is the 3rd. And now Tyreek Hill wants to re-up his contract and redo it and get a new contract and be the highest paid wide receiver in the league, or maybe even highest paid non-quarterback in the league. So he's old, man. Like, what are we doing? Like, Tyreek Hill doesn't even want to play the game. He wants to go be an adult star after he retires. Like, what are we talking about?
On the podcast.
And I don't understand what we're thinking here. And unfortunately, Miami might end up paying him. But you also have to think about the looming contract of potentially Tua. Might end up moving on from him. Again, you just paid Jalen Waddle. And you have a couple other guys that are going to end up moving forward for the contracts here in the very near future for a team that does not have a lot of money and struggles in the offseason to do anything because they were started off the offseason negative $60 million in the cap space. So I think, again, one of the biggest losers here is the Miami Dolphins, especially with Tyreek Hill asking for another contract. I heard that. That was weird.
Yeah.
Is that bang on your side?
I don't know.
All right. Next loser.
Brandon Ayuk.
So he's a loser in this. I wasn't sure whether to put the Niners or Brandon Ayuk because I know they want to bring him back, but I put them specifically because of the potential of losing him. But I wasn't sure to put him or BA.
Yeah, they're not gonna overpay for him. They just won't. I love him. He's Brock Purdy's number 1 guy. I think he's an amazing wide receiver. I think he's one of the best wide receivers we've ever had. outside of Terrell Owens, and a year of Randy Moss. That's a joke. He wasn't that great for us. But they're not going to pay him. You're not getting $30 million a year. You're not getting $32 million a year. And now that Justin Jefferson has set that contract and what production looks at that number, Brandon Ayuk just doesn't sniff it.
Yeah.
Maybe next year when Kittle's gone and Juszczyk is gone and we've moved on from Deebo Samuel and there's like he's the number one guy and that's all we got. But even our number, our most targeted third down guy is Juwan Jennings, who we just signed an extension to. It's not Ayuk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? On third down, you're looking for Justin Jefferson. So,
and you guys have made it work with other wide receivers that aren't the superstar level of BA.
And I've given you the stats on Brandon Ayuk on why he's fantastic, on why I think he's a top 5 to 10 wide receiver in the league if he'd get more touches. I'm in the same bucket. His route of separation, his separations on his routes are amazing. He makes people look just stupid when he runs routes, but he's not going to get those many targets. He's not going to get 15 targets in a game. So I just don't think he's going to get the contract he wants. And before you I'm going to go back to back here before you take another one of mine. I'm actually going to put the Dallas Cowboys here as losers.
I also put them. So we had two of the same. Yeah.
Okay. Because Dak Prescott wants his contract. Micah Parsons wants his contract. CeeDee Lamb wants his contract. You guys got a lot going on over there. So
those top three for having no real postseason success is the most hurtful thing. It sucks. You can't get rid of Dak because obviously that's your quarterback, and that's also the heart and soul of your team. Shut the fuck up. And that's also a big.
I talked to Jerry the other day. That's what he told me. Sorry.
Yeah. What do he sound like again?
I'm not doing
tell me?
Hey guys, we're gonna go all in this offseason, and we're gonna get Eric Kendricks, and we're gonna bring Zeke back, and we're going all in.
Yeah, don't even get me started.
And we're gonna draft the offensive lineman in the first round that Jacob hates.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a painful existence. So between again, you can't get rid of Dak, and then you have CeeDee Lamb, and I feel like you can't get rid of him either, not because of just his production, but if you look back a couple of years, you see Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, and when you get rid of Amari Cooper, one of the biggest talking points outside of signing Michael Gallup was also CeeDee Lamb was ready to be a number one. And I'll be the first person to admit when I said I wasn't sure if CeeDee Lamb was ready to be the true number one. And he goes out and he balls, and the next year after that, he balls even further. So,
bro, I think the most expendable player is Micah.
It is Micah when you have those three guys, the most expendable is Micah. As explosive as he is, as talented as he is, we're not talking about a guy who's put up 18, 19, 20 sacks, right? We're not, again, you look at those top guys who've put up a lot of sack numbers. And when you think of who the best pass rushers in the league, TJ Watt, who always feels like he's sniffing somewhere around the 18 to 20 sack mark, Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Max Crosby, like those guys always feel like they're kind of have their hands somewhere around that 16 to 20 mark, and they want to constantly be around that range. Micah just hasn't got to that point, and disappearing in some of the bigger games and at portions during the season is not a good look for him, and it might end up having him move on to the next team. Probably going to go to Washington, going to go play with Dan Quinn. So that's Micah's future, unfortunately. So did you have any more losers or that was it, right? That was all three of them.
No, I think that's a pretty good list. I think that anytime a player gets a contract that he deserves, it's a win for, there's nothing bad about this contract. He's the best wide receiver in the NFL. He has
by
been.
far and away. Yeah.
And he just got paid a contract that he deserves. He didn't get jobbed in any type of way. And there's a young player that teams are really, NFL fans are really excited about. And JJ McCarthy, he's got a number one threat. It just, everything about this for football is good. A player played really hard. He got rewarded. A young quarterback got drafted. He's got a top guy. Because, frankly, it's more exciting for the NFL when these young QBs ball out. Nobody wants to see Anthony Richardson go on the IL last year.
Yeah, and he's already getting. Speaking
of the damn IL, taking this shit off. Freaking Giants! They're starting like 7 dudes that were in Sacramento playing on their AAA team 2 weeks ago. Stupid Giants. All my teams suck.
It's okay. St. Louis isn't doing so hot either, especially playing against Houston.
Who's winning in the hockey playoffs? I'm gonna root for them. Are the Las Vegas Golden Knights any good anymore?
Yeah, we're just gonna do a full 180 switch and start rooting for hockey players now.
We should do like a 30-minute video of us doing like hardcore hockey analysis, except for not doing any research and just like completely talking out of our ass. We'll probably double our subscribers.
Dude, we should just pull it up on screen and just have like videos, like have it going in the background. Like, so what you see here is they drop the gloves and they start just fist fighting and just start getting UFC analysis instead.
I really think they should probably just put the puck into the net a little bit more. You see the other teams put the puck into the net 3 times, and that's why they're winning. So I think if they go down to the other end of the ice and put the puck in the net more, maybe, that's what I would do.
Yeah. Keys to the game is they have to score more, and you have to have them, and your team has to stop them. I think that's frankly, really the key.
If they play good defense, that should lead to good offense. And I mean, Wayne Gretzky is overrated anyway.
Oh, God. Yeah. Now you're going to get people going.
He's got hella nice hair, though. I'll tell you that much. Wayne Gretzky's got nice ass hair.
I think this is probably the craziest tangent that we've gone on the podcast. Just immediately just flipped hockey. All right, Drew. Before we move on, any final words until we see the audience on Thursday after the game 1 of the NBA Finals?
I don't have enough time to get into this, and it's going to be a polarizing topic. And Thursday after the finals may not be the right time for it. But the Caitlin Clark thing, we might want to devote a little bit of time to that here soon.
Yeah, I think
especially the fact that her team has played like 1 million games in the first couple of weeks of the season, and the Las Vegas Aces have played like 6 games in the first couple of weeks of the season. Very interesting. WNBA, polarizing topic.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that's going to be interesting to go over.
And that's hella good basketball, by the way. If any of you guys listen, I'm not gonna sit out here and I'm not trying to add subscribers or, oh, hey, women's rights. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just saying, if you love basketball, if you watch basketball, if you understand basketball, there's some WNBA games that are like, holy shit. Because it's not just being blown away by the athleticism. You know what I mean? Yep. LeBron is just a freak of nature, right? The WNBA, the way they play basketball is it's entertaining as hell. So yeah. That's my rant for that. So yeah, we got hockey and WNBA next week. We're going to get one view from that. But hey, let's rock.
All right, Drew, let's log off. We'll see these guys on Thursday. Oh my, I just had a stroke. Everyone have a beautiful night. Besides that,
fuck the Chiefs.
See ya.